Well, there's some evidence right there. I've long held that atheists and skeptics and free thinkers and folks like us should not refer to ourselves as brights. And I think that was just a lot of evidence right there. Okay. I don't know why I'm getting that. Let me go back to this. Okay. Well, you can't really tell, but that is a chalkboard, which I think is appropriate for my presentation here. It's a very popular motif down in the States on Fox News. Don't know if you've heard about it. Real quick, I just got to tell you this little story because I think this is really funny. I happen to be privy to the good people who look at ads and say, yes, this can go on TV, this cannot go on TV, over at CBS. And Christian Mingle wanted to run an ad for their service on, I think it was Jeopardy or one of those. But they own Jeopardy and a lot of game shows, and it was just going to be a 10-second little ad. And they got rejected because legal said you can't say, find God's match for you. Which I thought, we got to give them a big hand there, right? I mean, that's we need some kind of verifiable proof that you're going to find God's match for me. Well, so there you go. I decided to do a little research on this. Christian Mingle is a lot like eHarmony, where you can go on. What you do is you go on and you fill out a survey. You don't actually have to sign up for the thing first. You can do the survey, and then it'll show you your matches. And then if you want to connect with them, you got to pay your money and get on. So what I did is I took this survey where they take the information and then they match it to their database of people and see who you might be a good fit with. So I went through and I did that whole thing. I think you'll be interested to find out this is who they thought I should be matched up with. So maybe there's something to it. Let's not poo-poo it just immediately, okay? Now, I'm not going to assume everybody knows who I am. Sometimes I don't even know who I am. I have to have Amy remind me. I do a show called Mr. Deity. It's popular on the webs, I think is what they call it. The kids are into it. Mr. Deity was launched in 2007. I play God, if you're not familiar with the show, which I always say I don't recommend that. I don't believe people should ever play God, except for if it's me, I'll make an exception, like everybody else. So I play God. My best friend in the world, Jimbo Marshall, plays my long-suffering assistant, Larry, who has to suffer the indignities of being my assistant, basically. And we have the hunkiest Jesus in the world. He is hot. I mean, I lose a little piece of my heterosexuality every time I do a show with him. And boy, this guy has some stories, let me tell you. So, and then my lovely wife there on the end, she plays Lucy or Lucifer. And DeCarlo, where are you? Where's DeCarlo? Did he? You know, there's a part of me that gets that whole eating Satan thing. That's a tasteless joke, and I'm sorry I made it. But you know, there's something to it because she's yummy. I got to tell you right now. We don't know how many people are watching the show at any given time. What we do know is the vast majority of the people who follow the show do so on iTunes. We went with Sony for the second year of our show, and they wouldn't allow us to post on YouTube. So the people who love the show moved over to iTunes, and ever since we get most of everyone watching on iTunes, what we do know is this is how many times the show is downloaded via our RSS feed. We don't know how many people are watching. I think it's like 4. But that's a lot of downloads, right? Okay, so 6, maybe 7. Okay, 7 over here. But the show has gotten a lot of critical acclaim, and it's popular amongst the atheist, skeptical crowds. We have a lot of big fans of the show. Richard Dawkins is a huge fan of the show. Probably my favorite moment since I've started doing the show is I got to hang with him at TAM last year for a good long time, and the whole RDF crew. And when it wasn't the first time I'd met him, but I got to walk up and say, Richard, it's so good to see you again. You're my hero. And he said in that wonderful British accent, no, you're my hero. It was It was spectacular. I will live forever with that one. There he is. I call him Shard. He said that's okay. Michael Shermer's a good friend to Mr. Deity. They run a little ad for it every time we come out with a new episode. But Michael is integral to my being part of this whole community and this group. I got connected up with Skeptic Magazine out of Caltech when I left my religion, my former religion. I'm a Mormon. I don't know if you know that. Or I used to be. I'm not now, obviously. Julia Sweeney loves the show. Big fan. Penn and I assume Teller. But he's not talking to me. Or anyone, for that matter. And then one of my favorite fans now of the show is my dad. My dad, I grew up Mormon. My dad joined the church just to keep peace in the family, and I could always kind of he was like the skeptic in my life that kind of probably allowed me to think for myself a little more than I normally would have. By the way, this is not, he doesn't typically look like this. I just happen to have the shot. He's okay. Everything's good, despite my attempts to the contrary. If you knew him, you would understand that photo. Don't judge me. Do not judge me. So, this is one of my favorite stories. He joined the church, kept peace with my family, and after my mom's death about 10 years ago, he read the Bible, and that was it. That was pretty much it. That's all he needed. I came over one day, and he says, "Have you read this thing?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, I read it. You guys kind of made me read it when I was younger. But yeah, I read it." He said, "This thing's sick. It's disgusting. All kinds of just awful. Did you know that he slept with his own dog?" And he figured out that it's an X-rated book, basically. So the question I get asked a lot about the show is, where do you get your ideas from? And I end up looking a lot at Christian apologetics sites. They're always fun. To me, it should be a sign if you have to have a site with mounds and mounds of data basically apologizing for your point of view. That should probably tell you something. It doesn't, though, with them. They've got an explanation for everything. No matter how bad it looks, they've got some kind of great explanation. But frequently, these explanations cause me to have what I call an "oh, well" moment. Oh, well. Because that's the only thing I can think to say, because they're so ridiculous and obscene. It would be as if, you're caught committing adultery, and you say to your wife, well, but sweetie, she was really hot, and she came on to me. And your wife would say, "Oh, well, okay, well, I didn't understand that. Never mind then. I can see how that totally makes sense, and I don't, of course you're going to do it, of course." So that's what we get. We get the big "oh, well" moment, and when I have an "oh, well" moment, I have to write an episode about it. I'm going to show you in a moment Mr. Deity and the Virgin, which we did in season 3. That came along because I was reading this. This is their explanation for why it was okay to kill non-virgins back in the day, which they I guess I don't know how much they did it, but they certainly recommended it. Critics of the Bible must be careful not to impose their present-day moral system upon that of an ancient culture found in Scripture, and then judge Scripture as though it is inferior to their own subjective morality. Of course, no, we can't do that. That would be silly. If a daughter had been promised to a man to be married and a dowry had been paid, there was every expectation from the bridegroom that she would be a virgin. If the contrary was discovered after the marriage, then the implication is that there had been a deception in which the father could be implicated, or it would mean that he was unaware of her sin, and this would bring great shame. The word we would use today is dishonor, maybe to make that more appropriate, to the family and the community, not to mention it being a display of outright rebellion against God's law. Of course, I read this and I said, "Oh, well, of course, now I understand. If the woman's a non-virgin, we must kill her." That makes perfect sense to me. So this is what we did with that episode, and it's a little racy. Can we have audio? So I told him the promised land was that crappy little area right off the Mediterranean. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Tiny place with no oil?
No oil.
Sir, you have to stop your people. You got to send down an angel, do something.
Stop what? What are they doing?
They're going to stone an innocent girl to death.
You're kidding. That's outrageous. What did she do?
Well, they're saying she's not a virgin.
Oh, well.
Oh.
Well?
It's just you know, if she's not a virgin.
Is she or isn't she?
Does it matter? They're gonna stone her to death. They're going to kill her. And she could have just been, you know, riding horseback or something.
Well, she should have gone side saddle.
Did they catch her fornicating?
No.
Well, so then how do they know she's not a virgin?
Yeah.
She was married yesterday, and her husband takes her up to the room, and, you know, there was no...
No evidence of virtue.
Yeah, if you want to call it that.
Well, I don't know what you want me to do about
Well,
it.
I want you to stop it.
That's their culture.
Their culture?
That's how they roll.
That's how they roll. This father probably put down a pretty penny for the dowry, and I'll bet the groom was expecting some USDA prime, not something that's already been chewed on. I'll bet he's a tick.
Yeah, and this girl made her father look like a total schmuck.
Total schmuck.
His reputation will never be the same
Never.
if he does nothing. He'll have no honor.
Larry, this guy thought he was driving off the lot in a brand new Caddy, and then he gets her home, pops the hood, and sees nothing but wear and tear. And there's no oil in the damn thing.
Dry motor.
I mean, if that doesn't deserve some kind of punishment, I don't know what does.
So do all the men have to be virgins too?
Why?
No, I don't know when that would be necessary.
Well, how do you work the math on that one? It takes two to tango.
Hey, look, I'm the first to admit I'm not good at math.
And he doesn't like to tango. He's
No,
more of a
disco.
Sir, come on. You know this isn't right.
I don't know that. And besides, what am I supposed to do about the Prime Directive? I'm just going to ignore that all of a sudden?
The what?
The Prime Directive.
Yeah, it states that we're not allowed to interfere with other cultures.
No interfering.
That's not our thing. That's Star Trek.
Really?
So, it's still a good idea.
Yeah, so?
Sir, they're saying it was your idea to begin with.
Okay, I might have said something like that when I was hanging with Mo on the mount. I just had that big fight with Lucy about the whole virgin thing. She's always on me, you know that.
So see, you've been interfering since the beginning.
And what has it gotten me?
Okay, if you're not gonna step in for the girl, what about your reputation?
My reputation?
Yeah, years from now, people are gonna look back and say, right, these were Mr. Deity's people. He was calling the shots, and this is the kind of immoral thing he let go on. In fact, ordered. I'm gonna listen to him, please.
Yeah, and I will have a simple, powerful two-word reply.
Tell him.
Prime Directive.
Prime Directive. That's right.
Did you see the new Star Trek movie, by the way? That Abrams thing?
Yeah, that Abrams thing?
Unbelievable.
That's amazing. Fantastic. Is that Abrams guy one of our people?
It's Hollywood. Of course he's one of our
Right.
people. Love old
Who's he
Spock.
calling?
Who is he calling?
Hi, Lucy, Larry here. Guess who wants all of the women to be virgins?
Thank you. Can I get this back? Thank you. For those of you who don't know, Lucy is kind of Mr. Deity's on again, off again girlfriend, love interest in the show. You know, when we got married, because we weren't, Amy and I weren't married when we started doing the show, and I thought that would have been a bigger press story. You know, God and Satan reconcile, come together, but we got nothing out of it. Now, a couple of the characteristics of the deity character for me is, first of all, his complete unreasonableness. He is very much like these Christian apologetics people. There is no argument ultimately with him, because ultimately he just says his favorite word, so. And if you've got all the power in the universe, pretty much that settles it, doesn't it? You don't have to argue beyond that. Now, this is one of my favorite things that inspired an episode. We did an episode on the genocide, the genocide in Canaan, and that was inspired because I heard Sam Harris debating with my old buddy Dennis Prager, I used to work with and for him, who's a popular radio talk show host down in that country below you, and he's probably one of the best debaters when it comes to religion and those kind of topics. So here's the exchange that I heard that just cracked me up and made me go, oh, well.
Any one of your listeners who wants to go back and read Leviticus and Deuteronomy will find in there a worldview every bit as theocratic, even more theocratic than the Taliban under Mullah Omar. The killing never stops. Now, we have outgrown this.
The killing never stops because there were so many wars of conquest.
The killing never stops because there are so many wars of conquest. Now, those of you familiar with your Bible and your history know that there were so many wars of conquest because God ordered them. So it doesn't really get God off the hook if you say, well, yeah, there were so many killings because there were so many wars. which God ordered. That was a big oh well moment for me, but he went on beyond this, which I thought was very funny.
The killings do stop, in fact. And there are laws in the same Deuteronomy that if a man in war finds a woman that he wants to rape, he cannot touch her for 30 days, that she has to, in fact, mourn her relatives, sit in his home. She has to be allowed to cry. He can't touch her, and after 30 days he has to marry her.
So basically a 30-day waiting period on rape. I don't know if you caught that. I think that's why the Republicans are so big on waiting periods. That's an American joke. I don't know if you get that up here. So we did this episode, Mr. Deity in the Promised Land. Okay, are you on? And you can't fit anyone else.
Mr. Deity,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
I just figured out how many angels you can fit on the head of a pin. It's 728. 729. Write that down.
Sir, did you order your people to commit genocide?
Genocide?
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, thank heaven. We've got to get down there quick and stop what's going on.
No. I literally have no idea what you're talking about. What is genocide?
Genocide, the wholesale slaughter of another people, men, women, children.
Babies?
Babies, yeah, and pets and livestock.
And this is going on in Canaan today?
Canaan, yes, right now.
Yeah, I definitely ordered that, but I am not crazy about that name. Really? Genocide? That's the best we could come up with?
So you ordered your people to completely obliterate another people?
I would not use the term obliterate, no.
Because?
Because I don't know what it means. I would say utterly destroy. I think that's what I told my people. But I have been completely fair about this whole thing.
Fair? How so?
Yeah, I told them first make an offering of peace to the people on the land.
An offer of peace?
Yeah, and I said if they accept the offer of peace, then they can live as your slaves.
And what do they get in return?
Well, they get to live. Were you not listening?
As slaves?
Yeah, as slaves.
And that's your idea of an offering of peace?
Well, that's not just my idea. I mean, pretty much every god is on board with that.
So why are we wiping out this other people?
Well, because they're on the land that I've promised my people.
We could find some other land. Maybe something with a rich deposit of fossil fuels.
We don't have the time. The lease is up on the desert. It was a 30-year lease originally. I got 10 years out of the guy because I promised him my people would clean up completely, leave no historical evidence that they were ever there. Plus, we're out of mana.
Do property rights mean nothing to you?
Property right? Are you kidding? I'm all over the property rights. I told my people once you've killed everybody, you can take their property, that it's their right.
Sir.
Hold on, I'm getting a call. Jesus. Thank heavens. Hey, you're on the whole hailstone thing today, right? Raining down from above? Yeah, and you talked to Timmy. He's going to hold the sun in the sky so that they have more time for the slaughter. Okay, now remember, I want to kill more people with the hailstones than the people on the ground kill. I know, I'm ridiculously competitive. Okay, all right, bye-bye. You know, what I think you are missing in this whole thing, Larry, is that I have given my people all kinds of moral guidance for this whole war thing.
Moral guidance?
Yeah, I told them, for instance, if a man finds a woman he wants to rape in war, he cannot touch her for 30 days. He has to allow her to mourn her relatives. She gets to sit in his home. She has to be allowed to cry. He cannot touch her, right? And then if he still wants her after the 30 days, he has to marry her.
Sir, do you understand what kind of precedent you're setting here?
Precedent?
Yeah, by doing this, you don't know what precedent is, do you?
Not really, no.
Okay, you're setting an example for how these people can live. So one group of people can completely wipe out another group of people. You've just made that kosher.
I thought kosher was good.
Sir, what if a group of people wants to wipe out your people?
My chosen people? Are you kidding me? Please, that's never gonna happen. I mean, who doesn't love my chosen people? Now, lest you think I'm going over the top, one of my favorite things about that story in the Bible is that they literally point out that God killed more people with the hailstones than the people on the ground killed. I just love that. So now you know a little bit about the show. So here we are at the Imagine No Religion conference, and I wanted to think about imagining no religion. Well, I don't really have to imagine it because I've been living it for 18 years. I grew up, as I said, as a Mormon. There we go. There's the angel Moroni trumpeting. I don't know why he's trumpeting. No one ever mentions that he was trumpeting. I am a foreman. That's what I call myself. That's a former Mormon. That's my term. I should have a little trademark thing at the end there. But I started thinking about, well, how did I get out of this situation? How is it that I found myself with no religion? And maybe there's something to be learned there. What's interesting to me is that pretty much all religions are in the same boat. They all make claims about the world. We were just hearing a little bit about that. The interesting thing about Mormonism is that it is pretty unique in terms of it being, there are really no big faith claims in Mormonism per se, because Mormonism built itself almost entirely on empirical claims. The Book of Mormon came to Joseph Smith. It was a bunch of golden plates which he translated, and it claimed to tell the history of the Native Americans. And in the story of the Book of Mormon, we learn a number of things which can be empirically tested. It claimed that the Native Americans are Hebrews who were a middle-aged people with swords, chariots, horses, pigs. And the most deplorable thing about the book, and it really cannot be divorced from the Book of Mormon. It's really central to the whole idea of the Book of Mormon, and that is that God punishes people by darkening their skin. Now, yes, we can boo that if you want. Boo. Now, Mormonism is great because it's a little microcosm, I see it that way, of religion as a whole. It takes a situation that we don't know anything about, and it attempts to explain it. This is basically the same thing that the Abrahamic religions do. They take the world, we all see the world, we all live in it, we're here, and we say, why is it all here? Why is there something rather than nothing? And who are we? And what happens to us when we die? And all of that stuff. And it makes up a story about, to answer all of those questions. And then we just all accept it. And of course, if you're not living in a world where we actually evolve into science and start to value those ideals, well, you just don't question it. Mormonism took advantage of a situation where people came to North America, South America, from another world over there, and they had this book that told about God and his people and everything going on, and they came over here, and there are these people over here, and the book never mentions them, and nobody knew who these people are or why they were over here, yada, yada, yada. So people started making up theories. And one of the theories was that these are part of the lost tribes of Israel. In 600 BC, Israel got taken away by the Babylonians, and some of the tribes were lost, yada, yada. And here they are. Well, they made this journey. And so Joseph Smith saw that. It was already a very popular idea. He did not come up with that idea. A lot of people think it was his. Other people published books. Ethan Smith, no relation, published View of the Hebrews. Solomon Spaulding published a book about it. So there was a lot of that going on. He took advantage of it. He said, okay, I'm gonna work that in. He came up with a story about how this Hebrew family came here in 600 BC to North America, or Central. Now they don't know where it is. They thought it was North America before, and now they're trying to put it in this teeny little area in Central America because nothing else works. This man had two sons. Two of them were good, and two of them were evil. And of course, so that we would know who the good and the evil were, God said, "I'm going to make the evil ones with dark skin." It's a beautiful idea, really. So, in trying to find my way out of this religion, it wasn't something that I consciously did. I didn't say, I want to get out of this religion. But I started to question and kind of think for myself, which really you're not allowed to do within that religion, so you can get in a lot of trouble doing that. But one of the first principles that I came to understand is that the tendency of humans is to think of themselves as more important than they are. I mean, we've all seen that, and really the big three ideas in the last 400 years that kind of started to get those notions in our heads to just go away were obviously that the Earth literally isn't the center of the universe. Darwin kind of did it as well, and then Freud did it as well with psychotherapy. So I started to understand that, and it's an interesting point to me that no one worships a religion. There's never a big, huge religion in which this idea is not fulfilled. You don't have anyone worshiping in a major way, or large groups of people worshiping a god or being part of a religion that doesn't have this idea at its foundation. I mean, flipped. In other words, that humans are really, really important. And to imagine what that would be like, I wanted to take you back to the time of Sinai, and Moses comes down and he gives not an entirely different message, but a slightly different message. So I'm going to do Moses here. I'm going to channel him for just a minute. Hold on. God, where's John Edward when you need him? Okay. All right, everybody. Could I get your attention, everybody? Please, Can we turn off the music? Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. I don't want to be a party pooper. I know you're all having a good time, but I was up on the mountain and I talked to God, and what is that? What? It's a what? A golden what? A calf? A golden calf? Where'd we get that? You made it. Out of what? Is it gold leaf or? It's solid gold. Solid gold. Well, that thing's huge. Where? I mean, did I get left out of the memo here somewhere? I was under the impression that, show of hands, how many of you were slaves just 2 weeks ago when we left? So basically everybody, okay. How many of you were like me? I basically just grabbed what I could, the clothes off my back, and I hightailed it out of there. Anybody like, so all of you, okay, again. Boy, I'm not putting this together. See, so where did we get the gold? Anybody? Why are you all looking at your feet? Was I supposed to take the gold out in my shoe? Okay, you know what? I'm going to ignore that for now. I got a message from God. Here's what I need to tell you, people. He spoke to me. He said that he helped us out of Egypt because he didn't like us being slaves, and I'm sorry, what? No, he didn't seem to have a problem with slavery in general. Just our people. That was one of the things. Let's see, what else have I got here? Yeah, he said he didn't like us being slaves, and he didn't like us suffering any kind of injustice or inequality. What's going? You know what? I'm sorry, ma'am. I have to stop you. I don't mean to interrupt you, but the Lord was very adamant that you not be allowed to speak. Okay? No, not you specifically. Just anyone without a penis. Yes, I understand. It doesn't seem fair, but it's not my call. Not my call. Okay. So I got notes here. Let me see. Let me go through these. Yeah. I'm sorry. What? Okay. Yeah. Now, I guess he helped us out because we're the chosen people, which I thought that was crazy too. I didn't understand why we'd be the chosen people, but of course now that I see all the gold, it makes a lot of sense because he asked me if he could borrow a 10 spot, and he seems to be a little cash poor. We're going to be talking about that later. I'm sorry, what, Bob? No, he didn't have any. Okay, people, we got to start thinking bigger. He didn't have any specific directions for you. This is an all-powerful God. He's transcendent in every way. He's all-powerful. We got to start raising the level of thought here. He's not going to have any specific things for you. He's way too busy for that. I don't know what you were looking for, stock tips or what, but buy gold apparently. So what he did say to me is that, let's see, I wrote it down here. Okay, remember, transcendent. So you know how we've been killing the ox and we just let the blood run anywhere, it gets all over the altar, and it is messy. Yes, it is. Thank you. He had a brilliant idea, and that was that we should take the blood and just, I don't know if we're going to have to move the beast off a little bit. Let the blood drain on the side. Let the blood drain on the side. That was his brilliant idea, and I think we got to credit him with that one because it gets very messy on top. Then you have to clean sorry, what? Well, if you're worried about that, don't wear shoes. I mean, that's all I'd say to that. So that was one thing. The other thing in that same vein, no pun intended, is that if you're going to offer a dove, he would like, and I got to tell you, I'm a little proud of myself because I saw this one coming. This one to me was a slam dunk. He says, if you're going to offer him a dove, be sure and rip or twist the head off. Don't cut it with a blade. He's very adamant about that one too. Those of you who don't know your Bible, that's in there. And he's very adamant about that one, so let's make sure we please him on that one as well. Now, regarding us, here's what he said. He said that we shouldn't worry too much about things. We should just try to have a good time. He said that all life is evolving. I don't really have time to explain that. I'm going to have PZ up later to do that. And that our species is just a stepping stone to other species which will evolve later, and which he said, quite frankly, he will take greater pleasure in, not crazy about us. He said also that he did in fact create everything, the universe and everything we know, for one species, but that species will not evolve here on this planet, and it will take another 15 billion years. So we got a little downtime. He had these few recommendations that he wanted me to pass on. He just said, be kind to each other. And he said I don't understand this one. He said to wash your hands before eating or cooking anything. That sounds a little silly to me. I don't know, but I'm going to trust him on that one. And then he said that we could just figure things out using our own intelligence. Intelligence. Okay. Yeah. Sorry? No, I asked him about that. He said death is the end. Death is the end. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't sound very fair. All right. I think I'm looking over pretty much it. I know it's not necessarily what you wanted to hear. Oh, wait. There is one more thing before we blast the tunes again. Hold on one second. Aaron, do we have anything sharp to cut with? Okay, could you get that? Okay, great. I need to see all the men in back of the mountain, and be sure and bring your penises. Thank you. You know, that's one of the reasons why, PZ, if I can say so, it's one of the reasons why Christians don't like evolution. They get it. They really do get it. Because if we're just here and we've just evolved like every other species on the planet, then why would we ever think that we are the intended end game for God? Really? This species, this is what he's going to be crazy about? I don't think so. I think he's going to be looking for something maybe 5-10 billion years into the future. So now Mormonism takes advantage of this great little idea by telling you how important your own feelings are about things. You find out about the truth of Mormonism by getting a burning in your bosom. This is how the Book of Mormon puts it. And when we, by the way, it's all in King James English. I don't know if you know that. He was writing in the 19th century, but he felt, I don't know, he felt an affinity with King James. And when you shall receive these things, I would exhort you that you would ask God, the eternal Father, in the name of Christ, if these things are not true. And if ye shall ask with a sincere heart, there's your out, by the way, and real intent, another out, having faith in Christ, he will manifest the truth of it unto you by the power of the Holy Ghost. In another revelation, he says, but behold, I say unto you that you must study it out in your mind. Then you must ask me if it be right, and if it is, I will cause that your bosom shall burn within you. Therefore you shall feel that it is right, but if it not be right, you shall have no such feelings, but you shall have a stupor of thought, and which shall cause you to forget the thing which is wrong. Well, my problem is, I guess I couldn't forget the thing that I was wrong about. So that brought up this big question for me, and it's a question that Mormons really don't ask when you're in the faith. Can I trust my heart? Now, for me, I was a pretty empirical guy, you know, by the time I was 20, and I guess I feel if you've lived to 21, 22, 23, and you're still someone who trusts your heart, you're just not very bright. Okay, that's all I can say. There were so many things that I felt so great about, you know, 16, 17, 18, 19. That girl I asked to the prom, she didn't put out. Kidding, teasing. She did. So For me, the answer was a big fat no. I had to come to terms with the fact that I can't trust my heart. I felt really good about a lot of stuff that turned out to be pure crap. So if I can't trust my heart, who or what can I trust? Well, wonderfully, Mormonism had an answer for that as well, because for years I had been reading, and the church had been promoting these books which claimed to provide all kinds of evidence for the faith, particularly some very bogus books about the archaeology of the Mesoamerican world. They had books about the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi Library, and how they were finding all these things which were showing that Mormonism was true and all of that. So they had what every religion really prefers, evidence, or so they claimed. All religions, by the way, PZ made a great point last night about how everybody's now trying to get in on the evidence thing. Nobody just says, oh, just have faith anymore. So Mormonism had evidence. And what you realize is that if you go back and you look at your Bible, theism was originally empirically based. It wasn't a faith-based idea. There was this God in the sky who, if you didn't do what he said, would kick the shit out of you, okay? There's no two words about it. If you were Cain, murder left a mark, okay? You murdered your brother, you got marked for life, okay? There was an empirical blot on you. If you were living in Sodom and Gomorrah, goodbye, gone, okay? Pharaoh, he lost his firstborn, the river turned to blood, raining frogs. That's hard to say, raining frogs. Nobody said it's a wicked and sinful generation that looketh for a sign. There were signs all over the place of God. And so you had this empirical claim where if you don't do what our God says, there's going to be bad news for you. That's why when people got sick, and this carried us all the way through the Middle Ages. When people got sick, people didn't think of the germ theory of disease. They thought, oh, shit, what did that person do? God, they're incurring the wrath of God. Someone spoke this morning about, was that you, Stuart, about how the thunder would hit the someone's house and it would go on fire, and everyone would just, oh boy, what did they do? Everybody stand back. Don't help them put the fire out. But the problem was, you can empirically test this, and obviously people did. People who loved God and read their scriptures and everything looked around and they said, you know, Bob's a jackass. Bob's a complete and utter jackass. He doesn't do anything the Lord says to do. He's got all the great horses. His 6 wives are all gorgeous and beautiful, and he's driving a nice Ferrari. So empirically, you could look at that and say there were problems with this idea. God's not going to punish us. Of course, one of the things that comes out of that is the book of Job, that tries to teach people in a horrendous way, by the way, because it all starts out with God taking a bet with the devil about what she, I almost said she because I'm so used to calling the devil a she, what she could do to this guy before he would curse God's name. And the book is a moral leap because what it says is, even if the worst shit in the world happens to you over and over and over and whatnot, it's not God punishing you. It's not something that you did that brought this on. Job was the best man on earth. He was nearly a perfect man, it says in the scripture, and all of this stuff fell on him. So there was this kind of moral advance that didn't quite hit, didn't get taken seriously. Obviously, we went totally backwards in the Middle Ages and kind of forgotten about the book of Job. But it is why the Christians had to come up with another idea, which is you get punished in the next life. It doesn't necessarily play out here. Yeah, you can disobey God and all that stuff, and you don't necessarily get the wrath of God hitting you here, but you're going to get it in the next life. That cannot be empirically tested. That's where we moved away also from empiricism and faith, and into faith. Now, when I start thinking about imagining no religion, one of the things that I imagine is that I will never have to hear another debate with William Lane Craig. I don't know if you know who he is, but he is. There are a zillion. I think this guy's debated every atheist on the planet, with the exception of me, and he is a guy who is, I call him the great asserter, because he makes all of these arguments which are basically just assertions, like PZ talked about yesterday in his speech if you were here last night. It's assertion after assertion after assertion. And one of the things that got me out of my religion was I understood another very important principle. To me, it's probably the most important principle of the scientific revolution, which is arguments are not evidence. If you've got a good argument, that doesn't mean anything. That's all you've got is a good argument. Scientists basically don't make arguments, they gather evidence, or more accurately, I should say, arguments are the beginning of science, not the end. That's your hypothesis. And then you figure out whether you've got evidence to back it up and support it. This distinction is kind of, between René Descartes and Francis Bacon. René Descartes went more with the pure reason. We can think our way through almost anything. And Bacon went with a more empirical approach of we got to test this stuff, and even died trying to do that. I'm not a fan of theology and philosophy, and I kind of tie the two together because theology relies so much on philosophy. William Lane Craig is a philosopher, and he gets up and he makes all these philosophical arguments, the Kalam, cosmological argument, which one of the beautiful things about an argument is no matter how many times it's been refuted, you can still just go up in front of an audience and say it again. You can just use it over and over and over again. With due respect to philosophers and theologians, I think they've held us back tremendously. And I got to see if I can get. I don't know that I can get this up now. Darn it! I had this and I had to restart the computer. Sorry, 1 second. Monty Python is one of my all-time favorite comedic group of people. They did stuff that was so brilliant, I can't even begin to touch it. There was an absolutely great skit where they did philosophical soccer, basically, where they had two teams of philosophers come out. You had the Germans versus the Greeks, and they all come running out, and they're taking their wave and they're bending and stretching, and Michael Palin just does this great stuff. Maybe later, if we're out there, I can bring it up again on YouTube and get it up. And then I think it's Confucius is the referee, and Thomas Aquinas and Augustine are the referees. And of course, he blows the whistle for them to begin play, and they start walking around thinking about what they're supposed to do. Yes, what can we do? What can we do? Socrates, it looks like he has an idea, and finally what ends up happening is Socrates takes the ball downfield and kicks it into the goal, just as the clock is running out. And of course, this is all debated by the existentialists, whether there was a ball in the first place, and you get all of this kind of stuff. So this is what you have. You have people. One of the reasons I hate these debates with William Lane Craig is because just the notion of a debate kind of supports the premise that we should think that arguments are so valuable. Well, they're just not. But if you want to think that they are, I have come up with a fantastic argument of my own. I put this together. I think you'll be very impressed. I think it's a closed door on this whole God thing. So the argument goes as this: all things that exist have a cause. The God of Abraham does not have a cause. Therefore, the God of Abraham does not exist. So next time you need a really good argument to shut them down, that's it. Of course, that won't do it, because that's one of the other things is nobody, scientists don't sit around in a room arguing with each other. They don't come up with these great arguments. They present their evidence, and they say, if you can repeat it, then we should probably say that this is evidence for this idea, and it's always open to debate. It's, you don't get that on the theological end. You just don't get. Theology just closes the door. It says, this is what God said, that's it, done. You see that on bumper stickers all around our country, particularly in the South. So when I started looking at the evidence for Mormonism, I ran into problems. First of all, the archaeology of Mesoamerica just doesn't fit. The Native Americans here were not a middle-aged people. They didn't have all kinds of swords. The population dynamics don't fit. They came over here with 14 or 40 people, maybe at most, and within a few years there's millions of them. If you know anything about population rates at the time, 0.001 or 0001. It took a long time to reproduce yourself, basically. So much infant death and mothers dying and all of that. But, a few hundred years out, they have millions and millions of people with millions and millions of swords going to war. And yet we have yet to find a single sword. That's a problem. The linguistics were all wrong. None of the Native American languages fit with any kind of Hebrew language where they might have owed something to Hebrew. And then the big thing in the early 90s, just when I was getting out of it, the DNA stuff became a problem because it became clear that the Native Americans are not in fact Hebrews. They are North Asians who came across the land bridge pretty much when scientists thought they did. So now, what I want to talk about just last here real quick, they offer, Christianity has a few good little trinkets of empirical thought. This is one of them that I like. By their fruits ye shall know them. The golden rule is another good one, I always think, because the golden rule says, well, empirically, if you think something is good, you should be willing to suffer it. So if you're going to sit there and say, yeah, I think torture is a good idea, oh, okay, so then if we torture you right now, you'll be okay with that. I don't think Bush or Cheney would be up for that. So by their fruits you shall know them. All of us here living in free, liberal, democratic societies in the West have come to love these values, basically. And I'm not even talking about just us, the free thinkers and the skeptics and the atheists. The religious love these values too, even in my country. Now, some of them they love a little less than others, as we see every election. But they have tried to talk to us about America being a Christian nation. And one has to ask, what is the definition of this? This is one of my favorite little bits, only because I love the name of this book that is quoted from. This is from Reformed Perspective. The Christian perspective outlined by Robert T. Ingram in his book, What's Wrong with Human Rights? There's a title for you, huh? What's wrong with human rights? Those damn human rights people. As Ingram sees it, the Ten Commandments are the moral foundation for civil government. All law must be in conformity to the Ten Commandments. Well, we certainly don't have a nation based on the Ten Commandments. These are the 8 that we don't give a crap about. Neither do you in Canada. Nobody goes to prison for making a graven image. Although Lady Gaga is close. These are the 2 that we all agree on, and these are not uniquely Judeo-Christian. Those go back to much earlier, the Hammurabi Codex. So Christian nations, to me, when I ask myself empirically, by their fruits you shall know them, I ask, what did Christian nations do? Because there were Christian nations. For about 1,000 years, you had Christian nations throughout Europe. What did they do? What did they demonstrate? Did they demonstrate their reverence for the values that we've all come to know and love? And what they demonstrated was an absolute abhorrence for the values that we've come to revere. I'm going to blaze through these real quick. To me, the bigger list that I had there before come down to these 4 in a large way: liberty, equality, tolerance, justice. And these are not the ideals of the holy books, either the Bible or the Quran. Liberty, you've got the big 3: religion of freedom, religion of speech, freedom of the press, or freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. We don't need to go over those. I think we all understand these are not values that the Christians in my country care about, or probably here. Equality is one of those interesting things that's becoming a real hot issue in America because we just tipped over. A couple weeks ago, there was a poll, CNN poll, 51% of people now in America are okay with gay marriage. That is going to be an issue which is very quickly resolved. We've just gotten rid of don't ask, don't tell, finally, thank God. Not thank God, but you know. But equality is becoming a big thing because the gay rights movement is relying heavily on our 14th Amendment, which says everyone has equal protection under the law. And basically equal rights. So you get things, people going nuts in my country, like Dennis Prager, my old buddy, who said this at a big Republican rally, which is equality, which is the primary value of the left, is a European value, not an American value. Let me tell you that right now. I know that sounds offensive to half of my fellow Americans because they have been Europeanized in their values. The French Revolution is not the American Revolution. The French Revolution said liberty, fraternity, equality. The American Revolution said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Of course, there was this little bit before that whole liberty, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that all men are created equal. That's getting pushed aside now simply because if we're going to admit that we are serious about equality, then you really can't take people who have a different sexual orientation and deny them the same rights that everybody else has. So they're trying to get rid of equality altogether in down below, in that country down below. Isn't it nice that we're south of the border? I always heard the Frank Sinatra song, south of the border, and I never thought of us, but you guys must think of us all the time. Tolerance. Well, we don't even have, I mean, do we really? Here's one of my favorite scriptures on tolerance. He that sacrificed unto any God save unto the Lord, only he shall be utterly destroyed. Utterly destroyed was very big for Yahweh. Don't know if you're familiar with that. Of course, the ultimate intolerance is burning in hell forever. I find that just to be extremely intolerant. And I love Christopher Hitchens, who says, you say what you want about the Old Testament God. He's wrathful and petty and just, pure evil. But at least when you died, he left you in the ground to rot and do whatever you want. Well, the Christian God, resurrects you with your beautiful body and then tortures you forever and ever and ever. Sweet guy. Justice. One of the most interesting things about our Constitution down south of the border is that the first 10 amendments, called the Bill of Rights, if you really look at them, what you see in there is a complete rejection of Christian canon law. The search and seizure. During the Inquisition, they would take people who were witches, which we all know exist. I mean, I don't need to tell you that. They would take witches, and they believed they were witches because the Bible says, you shall not allow a witch to live. And they would take these witches and torture them. They almost always tortured them to get the names of other witches so that they could find more people to torture. And in essence, it was a big land grab because while the Torah says to just leave them, leave their stuff alone, nobody takes their stuff. The Catholic Church was as Stuart mentioned today, they were taking everybody's property. It's one of the reasons they became such a huge landowner in Europe. So you had witches running around. My favorite story about the Inquisition, I shouldn't say favorite because it's awful, but the most awful story I've ever heard is there was a guy who was being bewitched by these 3 cats, pun intended, who would keep him up every night caterwauling. So one night he decided to go out and hide in the yard, and the cats came and started caterwauling, and he took a club and he went after them, and he hit one of them in the leg, and the other 2 got away, or one of them was killed or something like that. The next day, what do? They go through the town looking for anyone with a bad leg because they're convinced that the person the cat that he hit with the bad leg is going to show up as just a regular human, but with a bad leg because they got hit in the leg. So they find this sweet old woman, and the witches were frequently old women and frequently women who didn't, were not attractive. Not that anyone was attractive in the Middle Ages, but talk about bad breath too. It's just tough stuff. So they take this poor woman and they torture her. They take her and they torture her because they're certain she's a witch, and they torture her to give up names of other people. And she did. She gave up names, and then they were going to burn her at the stake the next day, but she died in prison that night. This is how crazy it got when you take a worldview like this that has no basis in evidence. It's all faith-based, and it's all authority-driven. That's the kind of thing you get. The values that we have now come to know and love are not Christian values. It's as simple as that. So the question is, if we imagine no religion, how do we make a better world? We have been doing it, and this is what I've been out talking about to everybody. We are winning this fight. I know sometimes, you had an election here last week that didn't go your way, or our way, I should say. But slowly and surely, we are winning these battles because everyone now values the stuff on the right, and no one values the stuff on the left, pretty much, with the exception. We got Phelps here. But we've replaced all of these things with God's will with human rights. You know, the story of Abraham is a story of, I don't care about you. I don't care about what you value. You just do what I want because I said to do it, and that's all you need to know. Shut up and kill your son. That's the start of it all, really. We have servitude, which we've supplanted with liberty, faith with reason, chauvinism with equality, bigotry with tolerance, prejudice with justice, ignorance with knowledge, and canon or Sharia law with due process. For me, the case closed on September 11th, 2001, when religion proved its worth to our country. The amazing thing to me about this is that the Christians in America do not realize that Islam today is where Christianity was 400 years ago, before the scientific revolution, before the Enlightenment, and before our progress in these areas, which has made all of the difference. Everyone likes what we do, whether they say so or not. They like what we've given them, the things that science and reason and all of the values that humanists and atheists and secularists have brought. Everybody loves them. No one's in disagreement, with the exception of the far radical, crazy nut bars. So we are winning this battle, but we do have to make progress in getting people to see that this is the same thing. Christianity is the same thing. It's just take it back, take out the Enlightenment and all of the people who got us all of these great values that we cherish. We're there again. We're right back with them. I wrote this. I always end with this because this is something that I like that I wrote. I was asked in a Israeli publication in an interview about the character of God, and was I trying to make fun of God? And my answer was basically, I play the God pretty much as he's written about. If you read the Bible, he's not very bright. I mean, he doesn't know that the sun is not another source of light. He doesn't know that a woman on her wedding night may not show signs of virtue. This is supposed to be a transcendent being, but he's dumb as a rock, And the thing that absolutely baffles me is how we don't see the ideology of Western religion the same way we see other failed ideologies which have caused so much destruction and harm. And so I wrote this. This is how I'll end. There is no ideology on the planet which has advocated, let alone canonized, genocide, rape, torture, honor killings, the murder of homosexuals, Sabbath breakers, non-virgins, inequality of the races and sexes, etc., and still enjoys the respect of good and decent people. Only religion boasts such a complete lack of moral inquiry, examination, and accountability. That's about as best as I've ever said it. Let me leave you with a few things. You can see the show on YouTube and iTunes. iTunes is great because you can just download it. If you do, try to go watch it on YouTube to get our views up. It looks like we're doing anemically, but we're not. You can go to the website, and we are subscriber and donor supported, so that always helps out. There's the little donate button down here, just so you know where it is. We also have a newsletter that you can sign up for, Way of the Mister, which is, those of you who know Kirk Cameron and Ray Comfort will know that that's a play on their Way of the Master. And we did a lot in Season 3. If you don't have a DVD of Season 3, you got to get it, because a lot of people here laughed last night at the Ray Comfort Banana Man question, and we did a lot about with the banana. In fact, PZ's episode, PZ was on the show last season, and we got the banana.